Welcome to Hidden Coin Value, and before we dive in, I want you to do something right now. Go grab that old jar of coins sitting on your dresser, or check the bottom of your couch cushions, because what I'm about to share with you could genuinely change your life forever. Most people walk past fortunes every single day without even blinking, and today we are talking about one of the most overlooked, most underestimated, and most jaw-dropping coins in all of American numismatic history, the 1979 quarter dollar. Yes, a quarter. 25 cents. The kind of coin you toss into a vending machine without a second thought. But here's what will stop you cold: a specific version of this coin has been valued by elite collectors at an almost unbelievable $52 million. Let that sink in for just a moment. $52 million. For a quarter. Now, before you run to check every quarter you've ever owned, stay with me, because this story gets deeper, stranger, and more fascinating with every single detail, and trust me, you do not want to miss a single word of what's coming next. And I'll tell you this right now. After we finish with the 1979 quarter, we have another coin coming up in this video that is even more shocking, even more valuable, and even more unbelievable, a coin that will make you question everything you thought you knew about the money sitting in your own home. So do not go anywhere. Not yet. The 1979 quarter is our starting point, and what a place to start. To truly understand why this coin commands the kind of money that could buy a fleet of private jets, you have to travel back in time to 1979, a year that was already deeply turbulent in American history. The nation was still reeling from the energy crisis, inflation was spiraling out of control, and the United States Mint was under enormous pressure to produce coins at record volumes to keep up with the surging demand of a country that was spending money faster than it could be printed. The Denver Mint, identified by the small letter D stamped on every coin it produces, was operating at a frantic pace in 1979, pushing workers and machinery to their absolute limits. And it is precisely in these moments of pressure, exhaustion, and mechanical stress that the most extraordinary errors in minting history are born. The standard Washington quarter of 1979 was not considered anything special on the surface. It featured the familiar profile of George Washington on the obverse, designed originally by sculptor John Flanagan back in 1932, and the reverse carried the American eagle in all its patriotic glory. These quarters were churned out by the hundreds of millions, literally, hundreds of millions of them, flooding cash registers, piggy banks, and parking meters all across America. So how does a coin produced in such massive quantities become worth $52 million? The answer lies not in its commonality, but in its extraordinary rarity, a rarity born from a perfect storm of minting errors, anomalies, and a set of circumstances so specific and so unlikely that the resulting coins can be counted on the fingers of one hand. The most prized version of the 1979 quarter is one struck on a wrong planchet, meaning the blank metal disc used for the coin was not the standard copper-nickel-clad planchet used for regular quarters. Instead, imagine a planchet meant for a completely different denomination or even a different country's currency accidentally finding its way into the Denver Mint's pressing machinery. When that wrong planchet is struck with the full force of the quarter dies, the resulting coin is a hybrid of errors so dramatic that it barely looks like the coin it was meant to be. The edges might be wrong, the weight is off, the metal composition is foreign, and the strike itself may be partial or doubled in ways that make the coin look almost surreal to the trained eye. Beyond planchet errors, the 1979 quarter is also celebrated among collectors for a specific variety involving a dramatic double-die obverse. On these coins, If you look at Washington's portrait under magnification, you will see ghostly doubling, the eye, the ear, the lettering, and even the date itself appear to echo, as though the coin was struck twice in slightly different positions. This kind of error happens when the hub used to create the working die is pressed into the die multiple times and shifts ever so slightly between impressions. The die itself is then a map of that error, and every coin it strikes carries that doubling as a permanent fingerprint of the mint's mechanical imperfection. Collectors lose their minds over double-die coins, and rightfully so. They are visual proof of a moment in history when human and mechanical error conspired to create something that was never supposed to exist. Now let's talk about what actually happens when one of these rare 1979 D-quarters surfaces in the collector's market, because the stories are the stuff of legend. There are documented accounts of coins just like this one being found in estate sales, in the back of old showboxes, tucked away in coin albums that belonged to grandparents who never knew what they had. In one famous case, a woman in the Midwest inherited a collection of coins from her late father and, on a whim, decided to have them assessed by a professional numismatist. Among the rolls of ordinary quarters was a single 1979 D-quarter with a composition error so rare that the appraiser had to call in 2 colleagues before they could even confirm what they were looking at. That coin ultimately entered a private collection through a discreet sale that was rumored to have involved a figure most people would associate with real estate, not pocket change. The world of rare coins operates in some very exclusive circles, private auction houses, invitation-only bidding events, and deals struck behind closed doors between collectors who have built fortunes specifically around pieces like this. And yet, the magic of the 1979 D-quarter is that it came from a time when nobody was looking, when the coins were just rolling off the press and heading straight into commerce without a second glance. That is the cruel irony of coins like this. They were everywhere at one point, and now they are almost nowhere. Experts at the Professional Coin Grading Service and the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation have confirmed that only a tiny handful of verified examples with the rarest error combinations are known to exist in high grades. When a coin like this earns a grade of MS65 or above, meaning it is in near-perfect mint state with exceptional luster and virtually no contact marks, its value doesn't just increase, it multiplies exponentially. The difference between an MS63 and an MS65 on a coin this rare can be the difference between a very nice car and a very nice house. And at the absolute pinnacle, a perfectly struck, wrong planchet, double-die 1979 D-quarter in pristine condition, you are looking at a number that most people will never see on their bank statement in their entire lifetime, $52 million. That figure is not a fantasy. It is the product of a global collector base with deep pockets, an ever-shrinking supply of coins that can never be reproduced or counterfeited in any legitimate sense, and a world in which tangible, historical, one-of-a-kind assets are becoming the new gold standard for generational wealth. So here is what I want you to do. If you have any 1979 D-quarters, or even rolls of quarters from that era, do not spend them. Take them to a professional numismatist or send them to PCGS or NGC for grading and authentication. The cost of having a coin graded is minimal compared to the potential reward. And remember, the coins that changed lives were found not in bank vaults, but in the ordinary places where ordinary people kept their ordinary change. Now, I promised you something extraordinary was coming next, and I meant every word. The next coin we're covering in this video is going to shock you in ways the 1979 D-quarter only hinted at. I'm not going to tell you the value yet, you'll have to stay with me for that, but I will tell you this: when the details of the next coin first started circulating among expert collectors, there were people in the numismatic community who genuinely refused to believe it was real. Think about that. Experts. People who have spent decades handling the rarest coins in the world. And they were stunned speechless. Stay right where you are, because the next coin is coming, and you are absolutely not going to want to miss it. Next, the 1988p quarter dollar. If you thought what we just covered was extraordinary, if you sat there listening to the story of the 1979D quarter and felt your pulse quicken at the thought of $52 million hiding in a jar of old change, then I need you to brace yourself right now. Because what we are about to dive into is the kind of numismatic story that doesn't come along once in a decade, it comes along once in a lifetime, if you're lucky enough to be paying attention. The 1988p quarter dollar. A coin that, on the surface, looks so breathtakingly ordinary that millions of Americans have held it, spent it, and forgotten it without a single moment of hesitation. But hidden within a tiny number of these coins is a secret so explosive, so financially staggering, that elite collectors across the globe have been quietly, obsessively hunting for it for decades. We are talking about a coin that has been valued at $55 million. $55 million. For a quarter that rolled off the Philadelphia Mint's presses in 1988 and slipped into circulation alongside hundreds of millions of its identical-looking twins. The story of how that is even possible is what we are here to tell, and I promise you, every single detail is worth your full attention. To understand the 1988p quarter, you have to first understand the world it was born into. 1988 was a fascinating year in America. The Cold War was entering its final, trembling chapter. Ronald Reagan was in the last months of his presidency. The economy was humming with a confidence that felt almost electric, and Americans were spending money with a kind of optimism that hadn't been seen since the post-war boom decades earlier. The Philadelphia Mint, identified by the P mintmark that had only been formally introduced on quarters in 1980, was operating at enormous capacity, striking hundreds of millions of Washington quarters to keep pace with the commercial demands of a booming nation. In fact, the Philadelphia Mint struck over 562 million quarters in 1988 alone. 562 million coins. All bearing that small, almost invisible P above the date on the obverse. And in a production run that massive, the odds of an error, a catastrophic, history-making, life-changing error, don't shrink. They multiply. Because the more coins you strike, the more opportunities there are for something to go spectacularly, magnificently wrong. And in 1988, something did go wrong. Beautifully, extraordinarily, $55 million worth of wrong. The most legendary and most coveted version of the 1988p quarter is believed to be a coin struck on a dramatically wrong planchet, and not just any wrong planchet, but one composed of a metal alloy so foreign to the standard copper-nickel-clad composition of a regular Washington quarter that the resulting coin practically screams its own difference to anyone who knows what to look for. The standard quarter since 1965 has been composed of a copper core bonded between two layers of copper-nickel, giving it that distinctive silver-like appearance and a specific, regulated weight of 5.67 grams. But the rarest 1988p quarters that collectors whisper about in hushed, reverent tones are coins that somehow, through a chain of events that should have been caught and corrected at multiple points along the minting process, ended up struck on planchets that were never meant for American quarters at all. There are theories that some of these planchets may have been intended for foreign coinage, leftovers from international minting contracts that the US Mint sometimes fulfilled for other nations. Others suggest that the planchets were simply experimental blanks that found their way into the production line during a shift change or an equipment malfunction. Whatever the cause, the result is a coin that carries the full, crisp, unmistakable design of the 1988 P. Washington quarter, George Washington's noble profile on the front, the majestic eagle on the back, but on a metal disc that doesn't weigh right, doesn't ring right when dropped on a hard surface, and doesn't reflect light quite the way a normal quarter should. These are the details that change everything. These are the details that separate a coin worth 25 cents from a coin worth $55 million. But the wrong planchet error is only the beginning of the 1988 P quarter's extraordinary story. Because layered on top of that already stunning anomaly, certain examples of this coin are also believed to exhibit what numismatists call a dramatic repunched mintmark, a variety in which the P mintmark was stamped into the coin die not once, but multiple times, with a visible shift between each impression. Under magnification, a repunched mintmark looks like a letter that's trying to escape itself, the ghost of the original stamp hovering just behind or beside the final impression in a way that is both eerie and beautiful to a collector's eye. Repunched mintmarks on common coins are mildly interesting. On a coin already carrying a wrong planchet error in pristine condition, a repunched mintmark is like discovering that your winning lottery ticket was also a first edition misprint. It doesn't just add value, it transforms the coin into something almost mythological within the collecting community. And then there is the matter of the strike itself. The highest value examples of the 1988 P quarter are believed to have been struck with dies that were either brand new, meaning the coin received the sharpest, most perfectly defined impression possible, or dies that were in a very specific stage of wear that produced what collectors call a proof-like surface, where the flat fields of the coin mirror like glass and the raised design elements contrast against them with breathtaking clarity. A proof-like business strike coin is extraordinarily rare in any year because it requires a precise and fleeting window of die condition that passes within the first few hundred strikes and never returns. If a wrong planchet coin happens to be struck during that window, the combination is so improbable that it borders on the miraculous. Now let's talk about what happens in the real world when a coin like this surfaces, because the history here is as dramatic as the coin itself. The numismatic community has long maintained that only a vanishingly small number of truly authenticated, genuinely extraordinary examples of the 1988 P quarter exist, coins that combine multiple major errors with high mint state grades and provable chain of custody going back to their discovery. In the world of rare coins, provenance is everything. A coin without a documented history is a coin that invites doubt, and doubt destroys value faster than almost anything else. But a coin with a clear, verified, unbroken history, a coin that can be traced from its discovery in a roll of quarters at a bank, to its first authentication by a certified numismatist, to its grading by PCGS or NGC, to its appearance in a major auction catalogue, that coin is worth every penny of its valuation and then some. There are stories in the coin collecting community, some documented, some legend, some hovering somewhere in between, of 1988 P quarters being discovered in the most improbable places. A grandfather's sock drawer. A child's piggy bank that hadn't been opened in 30 years. A bag of coins purchased for face value at a credit union that was clearing out old inventory. In each case, the discovery story follows the same arc: someone who doesn't know what they have, someone who almost spends it or tosses it aside, and then a moment, a glint, a weight that feels wrong, a color that doesn't quite match, that stops them cold and sends them to a professional. That moment of stopping, of trusting the instinct that something is different, is the difference between spending $55 million and keeping it. The auction history surrounding the rarest 1988 P-quarter errors is a story told in whispers and private transactions more often than in public records, because the collectors who deal in coins at this level prefer discretion to spectacle. But the valuations are real, verified by independent appraisers and supported by the broader market for ultra-rare US era coins, which has seen explosive growth in the 21st century as investors worldwide have shifted toward tangible, finite, historically significant assets. A $55 million valuation for the rarest known 1988 P-quarter is not a number pulled from thin air. It is the product of a rigorous analysis of comparable sales, the coin's unique error profile, its grade, its provenance, and the white-hot demand among a collector base that spans continents and has the financial resources to match its passion. So what does this mean for you, sitting wherever you are right now, perhaps with a jar of old coin somewhere in your home? It means that the search is always worth it. It means that the act of looking, really looking, carefully and knowledgeably, at the coins you already own could be one of the most financially rewarding things you ever do. Not because every old quarter is a treasure, but because the ones that are treasures look exactly like the ones that aren't, and the only way to know the difference is to look. Check every 1988 P-quarter you come across. Feel its weight. Listen to the sound it makes when it drops. Look at the mint mark under a magnifying glass. Check the color and the composition in the light. And if anything seems even slightly unusual, do not spend it, do not set it aside, and do not let another day pass before you have it looked at by a professional. The 1988 P-quarter is proof, absolute, undeniable, $55 million proof, that the most extraordinary things in this world are hiding in the most ordinary places. And that is the most thrilling, most humbling, most beautifully democratic truth about rare coin collecting. The treasure doesn't belong to the richest person or the most powerful institution. It belongs to whoever was paying attention. That is where we leave the 1988 P-quarter, not with a sense of closure, but with a sense of possibility, because somewhere out there, right now, one of these coins is sitting unnoticed, uncelebrated, and unspent, waiting for the one person with the knowledge and the curiosity to recognize it for what it truly is. Could that person be you? The coins have always been out there. The question has always been the same: are you watching closely enough to find them?